On the morning of November 28, 2016, a violent and chaotic scene took place here, outside of Watts Hall, as Abdul Razak Ali Artan drove a Honda Civic into a crowd of people, exited the vehicle, and proceeded to stab people with a butcher's knife, ultimately injuring 13. A year later, the FBI investigation is closed, and the Ohio State community is moving forward. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Elizabeth Suarez. In this special report, you will hear from a victim, the officer who took down the attacker, university administrators, an expert in psychology, and students, in the hopes that you gain a comprehensive view of the attack and its effects. We begin with former Ohio State professor William Clark, who was one of the 13 victims injured that day. Clark was hit by Artan's Honda Civic while waiting outside of Watts Hall for a chemical leak to be cleared in a nearby lab. He spoke with us about his experience that morning and life after the attack.
Well, I taught a class. The class was at 9 o'clock. So 9:55 or whatever, I went back to the office in Watts Hall. And there were a number of sort of bookkeeping things to be done. I usually put material and videos up afterwards and so on. So I was about ready to start doing that. So, you know, I was making coffee and getting ready to do that. And the building fire alarm went off. So we were all standing outside in the street, and it was cold. Everybody said, okay, fine. And I started to walk back towards the back entrance of the building. And as I did so, you know, I suddenly at the corner of my eye caught this silver flash, and there was some shouting. And this car rode up on the pavement and hit one of those concrete blocks there and just slewed around because it took the whole front end off the car. And it hit me in the lower leg. And so, you know, I went down on the ground hard. And so my first concern was to sort of check and see what was working and what might be broken and what might not, whether I could get up. And so I was doing, and it was, you know, slightly dazed, so I was doing that fairly slowly. And in the meantime, I started to hear this sort of commotion going on the other side of the car, out towards the street. And as he had got out of the car and, you know, started attacking people. So it's important to emphasize just what an isolated incident this is, you know. I've been here 35 years, and that's the first of that kind of thing that's happened. And as I say, we were fortunate and it was relatively minor. It's happening, you know, we do have, unfortunately, incidents like this going on university campuses. But I think it's very important to reassure people that this is an outlier. And you know, if you're a student or if you're a parent with a student here, you know, your son or daughter is pretty safe on this campus. At the end of the day, life goes on. And the worst thing that could happen at an incident like this is that everybody changes the way they go about things. You obviously want to be careful, and you obviously want to make sure that you don't do something foolish. But on the other hand, you can't turn your routine upside down and take your way of life upside down. Otherwise, you know, those people who want to destroy things win. And so you say, fine, you know, well, we go on. We take whatever necessary precautions necessary, but life continues.
Students are also reflecting on the day of the attack. Lantern TV's Jamila Muhammad spoke with students about how safe they feel on campus a year later.
Right behind me is Watts Hall, where the incident took place a year ago. Since then, Ohio State has taken measures to improve campus security. Students are sharing their thoughts on campus safety since this incident.
I actually work in this building. I do research here, and I was supposed to come in that day and work here, like literally when the fire alarm went off or whatever. And then I ended up going home for some reason. And then I ended up at home, and I was like, I heard about it, and I was like, I was literally supposed to be there. So I was like really, really lucky that I wasn't there. But I remember the moment that it happened, I started getting texts from a bunch of people, and they were like texting me, and I didn't even know that it had happened, you know, because it was like that second or whatever. And then I like read about it online, and I was like, that's crazy that it happened right there. I definitely feel more informed, because I don't know if this is just my perception, but I feel like I've been getting a lot more emails about what's going on campus in terms of like security stuff. And then at the bottom, like earlier it just kind of used to be a description, and now they have like this whole like suffix paragraph about like what to do and how it's not people's fault and all that stuff. So it definitely feels like they're making an effort.
Yeah, I think the updates with the breaking news with the texts and the emails are really helpful, especially with the crime that's going on around campus and everything. I also think that just the different security preparedness workshops that they've had since then have been really helpful as well, just knowing what resources are available to you, like if you don't feel safe or if you need help in comprehending the situations.
I don't really feel unsafe, maybe more uneasy when I'm walking to class, just to know that it can happen at any time, anywhere. So yeah, I think about it, especially when I walk by this building. I think about it when I walk by, right where he, drove off the road. I still think about it. So it's definitely different, but I still feel pretty safe.
I was sort of feeling kind of secure to know that it got solved so quickly, and I still feel safe in this campus. Like, I have no doubt that I feel comfortable walking around in this campus.
On Tuesday, the FBI closed its investigation of the attack. Investigators concluded Artan acted alone and was not directed by a terrorist organization. The FBI also stated that Artan appeared to be influenced by extremist ideology, including ISIS propaganda. Earlier this week, Ohio State released an interview with Officer Alan Haruko, who took down Artan. Before this video was released, Haruko had not spoken to the public. In the interview, he speaks about the impact of his training and the moment he shot Artan.
We get a call about the gas leak that was at that building. So we knew the building was evacuated, and I remember sitting there for a while. I was just sitting out there with my the beacons onto my car, just to make sure traffic didn't turn westbound. I see a car continue on, go up a curb, strike a bunch more people, and eventually stop in the middle of that courtyard area. And I think at the time, I just thought it was, a medical emergency. It was just an accident. So I remember calling on the radio saying, I need multiple ambulances. We had a vehicle go through multiple people, and I positioned my car closer to try to block off more traffic. And as I was getting out and running up to the vehicle, I noticed that the driver's side door was open, which was kind of weird, and there was nobody inside the driver's side portion too, no one at the wheel. And at that point in time is when I heard like a secondary wave of screams, and then you could kind of see the ripple effect from the epicenter of what that was, and everyone kind of moved out, but I still didn't know what was going on. I drew my gun and said, "What's going on?" And someone said, "He's got a machete." And then I asked where he went, and somebody, I don't remember who or what that person even looked like, was able to say he went that way. I yelled after him multiple times, drop the knife, drop the knife, drop the knife, but he never looked back at me, never acknowledged me.
He was still chasing?
Chasing people. Yeah, he was actively, he was kind of going up and down the street diagonally, running away from me, chasing anybody he could reach, slashing pretty wildly at anybody. And I was able to run after him, repeatedly yelling, drop the knife, drop the knife. And I don't think he quite picked up on me until he was making his way to the main entrance at Seebeck, which is across from Scott Lab. But that was after I saw him pretty severely slash somebody and they dropped. But at that time, I really had no opportunity to safely take a shot at him because there were so many people in the area. I couldn't take that shot and hurt somebody else also. So about the time that he crossed north of 19th into the Seebeck entrance, he was running towards the main doors, but the whole glass curved part of that building was occupied with students studying. A bunch of them were standing up, seeing what the commotion was about, seeing who was yelling, why everyone was running. I eventually was able to yell a few more times to get his attention. And at that point, I remember him looking at me, looking back at the female he was chasing, and then the front doors he was trying to get to, looking back at me again, and then making a longer turn and running straight at me at that point. And then that's when I ended up firing my weapon at him. I've been here about 3 years now, and I've had the good fortune that our department really values these training. They see the value of it because of what can happen.
A year later, additions have been made to campus safety, including the hiring of 4 Ohio State police officers using revenue from alcohol sales at Ohio Stadium. In 2014, select Ohio State police officers began wearing body cameras when the university was awarded a grant of $32,000. In January 2017, the entire department was outfitted with the cameras. This semester, Ohio State Police added a golf cart-like vehicle to its everyday patrol. In a September interview with The Lantern, Captain David Rose cited accessibility as a reason for acquiring the vehicle. He stated that it allows officers to have conversations with students and go where cars can't. Along with public safety, counseling held a major role in the aftermath of the attack on campus. Walk-in counseling was available to students in the RPAC and the Union in addition to the main locations that day and through the 30th. 24 crisis outreach events were held in dorms and classrooms for those directly affected by the attack. Director of Counseling and Consultation Services, Dr. Mickey Sharma, spoke with us on the psychological toll that traumatic events can have on a community.
When you talk about different levels of effect, the best way that I can describe that would be if you take a pebble and you drop it in a pond and it causes ripples. There's multiple ripples as we get further away from that pebble. That first ripple, that first circle, were people who were right there who were physically injured. Each layer out, people who were emotionally injured, people who were there, people who were not there but know someone who was there. Every member of the Ohio State community was affected in some way, but just in different ways. And based on how those people were affected would lend us to what type of assistance they might need. Some might need individual care, some might be okay in a group setting, in a classroom, or some might need just a time to talk about that. Not everybody needed to talk to a mental health therapist. Sometimes talking with family, friends, other staff or faculty on campus, that can be enough. But most people just need to, in some way, talk about their experience. The other thing is, when you go through something like that, your example of a student, a roommate who was in a locked situation for a period of time, even if you were physically safe in that space, that can still be unsettling. That can still be unnerving. And people who have experienced other traumatic situations, this can be a reminder of other traumatic situations. In this instance, where someone is using a car as a weapon and then a blade as a weapon, or you're getting a message that there's an active shooter, so there's an act of violence, or whatever, that you have an individual with a weapon who's trying to harm people. If we do not feel psychologically safe, then our physical safety also feels compromised. That's the connection between the two.
Sharma also said the anniversary may trigger emotions for students and encourages them to reach out to counseling and consultation services. While the morning of November 28, 2016 is one that many at Ohio State will never forget, 1 year later, students, faculty, and administrators gathered to reflect on the attack as a community. The event, titled Buckeye Strong, focused on the message of unity and strength.
Together we proved that we are resilient, that we are resolved, and that we are Buckeye Strong.
We have times that are wonderful and times that are not so good and times that are tragic. The most important thing for all of us is that we come together to support ourselves through those times, and we continue to work together to make this a better world.
USG President Andrew Jackson spoke of the importance of resilience from the Ohio State community.
In a commencement speech given by Sheryl Sandberg, she states, "We build resilience into ourselves. We build resilience into the people we love, and we build it together as a community. That's called collective resilience, and it's an incredibly powerful force." During my time at Ohio State, the Buckeye community has proven itself nothing short of resilient.
People also shared messages of solidarity in writing. The reflections from students and faculty will be added to a mural held in the Ohio State Archives, along with messages written on the day of the attack. The ceremony came to a close with Carmen, Ohio, the community singing the words, "How firm thy friendship," and showing what it means to be Buckeye Strong.